Minho pressed his thin fingers against the communication console as another explosion shook the building around him. The Villani Communication Center had been beautiful once with its crystal walls and flowing water channels that carried data through bioorganic circuits. Now cracks ran through everything and the water ran red with mineral dust from the bombardment above. The Krex ships hung in the sky like black metal insects. Their weapons fired down at the city in steady pulses that turned buildings to ash and melted the graceful spires that had taken centuries to grow. Minho could hear the screaming from outside, even through the thick walls. His people had never known war before today. They did not even have a word for it in their language until the Krex taught them. Suji limped into the room, holding her left arm close to her body. Blood seeped through her pale blue skin where shrapnel had cut her during the first attack. She was old, even by Villani standards, and her knowledge went back to the time when their ancestors first learned to speak with other worlds. "The council chambers are gone," she said quietly. "Direct hit from their orbital cannons. Most of the elders were inside." Minho felt his heart sink. Without the council, there was no formal government left on SciFiPrime. The Krex had been very precise in their targeting. They knew exactly how to break a civilization that had never learned to fight. "What do we do now?" Minho asked. His voice cracked like a youngling's, even though he had passed 40 seasons. Fear did that to people. It made them small again. Suji moved to the ancient archives section where the oldest records were kept. The crystal storage units here were different from the newer systems. They used technology from the early days when the Villani first joined the galactic community. Most of the data was considered obsolete now, but Suji had spent her life studying. "These old files, there might be something," she said as she activated a storage crystal that had not been accessed in over 200 years. "Emergency protocols from when our people first encountered other species. Back then, the galaxy was more dangerous, and there were procedures for requesting help." The crystal projected a hologram that flickered with age. Ancient Villani script scrolled past in the old formal style that was hard to read. Suji traced the symbols with her finger as she translated. "Here," she said. "Galactic emergency frequency 7749.3, to be used only when facing extinction-level threats. Warning. This frequency reaches beyond the known peaceful sectors." Minho looked at the frequency designation. He had never heard of it before, and his training covered all standard communication protocols. This was something from the old times, when contact with other species was new and frightening beyond the peaceful sectors, he repeated. "What does that mean?" Suji was quiet for a long moment. Another explosion echoed from above, and more dust fell from the ceiling. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "There are stories, very old ones that most people think are just myths, about species that evolved differently than us, species that learned to fight and kill as naturally as we learned to grow and build. They call them Deathworlders." The word made Minho's skin crawl. In Villani culture, death was treated as a natural transition, but the idea of a world that created death as a way of life was horrifying. "The stories say there are beings out there who can survive in conditions that would kill us instantly, who fight wars that last for generations and think nothing of destroying entire planets. Most scholars believe these are just tales meant to frighten younglings, but you think they are real? I think the galaxy is very large and very old. I think there are species we have never met who developed in ways we cannot imagine. And I think some of them might be exactly what we need right now." A new voice interrupted them. Commander Take of the Krex invasion force spoke through the emergency broadcast system that reached every intact receiver on the planet, "People of SciFiPrime. Your resistance is over. Your cities burn, and your leaders are dead. We give you 72 of your hours to surrender completely. Open your data archives. Prepare your population for processing. Those who comply will be relocated to work colonies. Those who resist will be eliminated. You have seen our power. Do not test our patience further." The transmission ended. Minho stared at Suji with wide eyes. Processing meant slavery. The Krex were known throughout the galaxy for their brutal treatment of conquered species. The lucky ones spent their lives in mining operations on distant worlds. The unlucky ones became subjects for biological experiments. "We have to try," Minho said. "Even if these Deathworlders are real, they might not help us. But if we do nothing, we all die or worse." Suji nodded. slowly. She activated the ancient transmitter and began tuning it to the emergency frequency. The equipment was old, but it was built to last. Slowly, the signal locked onto coordinates that led toward the edge of the galaxy, where the star maps showed mostly empty space. "What do I say?" Minho asked. "The truth. Tell them who we are and what is happening. Tell them we are a peaceful people who never learned to fight. Tell them the Kreks will kill us all unless someone helps." Minho took a deep breath and activated the transmission. His voice carried across the void on frequencies that most modern civilizations no longer monitored. Emergency protocols from a more dangerous time when the galaxy was full of predators and prey. "This is Minho of the Villani on SciFiPrime in the Kepler-7 system. We are under attack by the Kreks Empire. Our defenses have failed and our government is destroyed. We are a peaceful species with no weapons and no military. The Kreks demand our surrender in 72 hours. After that, they will kill those who resist and enslave the rest. If anyone receives this message, please help us. We do not know how to fight. We do not know how to protect ourselves. We only know how to ask for mercy from those stronger than us." The message repeated automatically as the transmitter broadcast it toward the coordinates in the old archives. Somewhere far away in the darkness between stars, the signal traveled toward worlds that might not even exist. Suji sat down heavily in a nearby chair. The effort of activating the old systems had exhausted her, and her injuries were getting worse. "Now we wait," she said. "How long?" "The signal will take 18 hours to reach the coordinates in our files. If anyone is there, and if they choose to respond, it could be days before we know." Outside, another wave of Kreks fighters screamed past the building. They were hunting down the last pockets of organized resistance, though there had never been much to begin with. The Villani police force carried crowd control devices and emergency medical equipment. Their idea of a weapon was a tool that could stun someone long enough to get them medical help. Minho monitored the communication channels and listened to the reports coming in from across the planet. The capital city was 90% destroyed. The orbital defense platforms had been eliminated in the first hour of the attack. Refugee camps were being established in rural areas, but the Kreks were systematically hunting them down. "Tell me about these Deathworlders," he said. "What exactly do the stories say?" Suji closed her eyes and recited from memory. "They say there are worlds where life must fight constantly just to survive, where the weather itself tries to kill everything, and where creatures hunt each other in endless cycles of violence. The beings that evolve on such worlds become something different from us. They learn to kill without hesitation. They build weapons that can destroy cities. They wage wars across star systems and consider it normal." "That sounds horrible." "Yes, but the stories also say they have codes, rules about how they fight and who they protect. Some tales speak of Deathworlders who became protectors of weaker species. Others tell of monsters who devoured everything in their path. Which kind do you think would answer our call? I do not know, but I know the Kreks consider themselves predators. Perhaps it takes a greater predator to stop them." The hours passed slowly. Minho sent periodic updates on their situation while monitoring for any response to their emergency transmission. The Kreks continued their systematic destruction of infrastructure and began establishing processing centers where captured Villani were sorted and cataloged. As the first day ended, Minho began to lose hope. The emergency frequency remained silent, except for the echo of their own message bouncing back from distant objects in space. Maybe the stories were just myths after all. Maybe there was no one out there who could help them. Then on the second day, something changed. The deep space sensors that were still functioning picked up massive energy signatures moving toward their system. The readings were unlike anything in the Villani databases. Whatever was coming was big and moving faster than anything they had ever seen. Minho stared at the display as the unknown contacts approached. There were dozens of them, maybe hundreds, and they were coming directly toward the SciFiPrime. "Suji," he called out. "Something is happening." The old Villani looked at the readings, and her eyes went wide. "Either we are about to be rescued," she said quietly, "or we are about to discover that there are things in the galaxy much worse than the Kreks." Admiral Jihoon Kim stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable and watched the tactical display update with new information about the Kepler-7 system. The massive dreadnought was the flagship of the 7th Human Expeditionary Fleet, and it moved through space like a predator stalking prey. Around it, hundreds of other ships maintained perfect formation as they approached their destination. Lieutenant Do-hyun Choi turned from his communications station with a puzzled expression. "Sir, the emergency. Transmission is repeating every 12 minutes. Same message each time. The translation algorithms are having trouble with some of the concepts. Show me what we have so far." The main screen displayed the translated text along with cultural notes that the AI had compiled. Admiral Kim read through it twice before speaking. "They say they have no weapons and no military. Is that possible?" Captain Yuna Park stepped forward from her tactical station. She was young for her rank, but her aggressive strategies had earned her a place on the Admiral's staff. "The deep scans confirm it, sir. We are detecting no energy signatures consistent with military installations. No orbital platforms. No defensive satellites. Their largest ships appear to be cargo vessels and research stations." Dr. Hyunwoo Lee joined the discussion from his position at the xenobiology station. As the fleet's first contact specialist, he had been analyzing the biological data embedded in the Volani transmission. Admiral Y have been studying their physiology. The Volani evolved on a low-gravity world with a stable climate. Their bone structure is extremely fragile by our standards. Their muscle density is roughly 30% of human baseline. They appear to be completely herbivorous. "Peaceful herbivores with no concept of warfare," Admiral Kim mused. "And now they are facing the Krex." Everyone on the bridge knew about the Krex Empire. Intelligence reports described them as a militaristic species that had conquered 17 star systems in the past 50 years. They enslaved other species and stripped worlds of resources to fuel their expansion. The Krex were exactly the kind of threat that Earth's military had been created to face. "Sir," Captain Park said, "I recommend immediate intervention. The Krex have violated galactic statutes regarding the treatment of non-combatant populations. This falls under our protection mandate." Admiral Kim considered this. The 7th Fleet was officially on a survey mission at the edge of known space. They were not supposed to engage in military actions without authorization from Earth Command. But the protection mandate gave him discretionary authority when facing clear cases of genocide. "What is our current strength?" 847 ships, sir. 12 dreadnoughts, including the Indomitable. 36 heavy cruisers. 112 destroyers. The rest are support vessels and troop transports. We are carrying 2 full divisions of Marines plus the orbital drop specialists. Dr. Lee accessed the cultural database and projected a summary of Volani society. "Admiral, these people have never experienced warfare. Their entire civilization is built around cooperation and harmony. They grow their buildings instead of constructing them. Their technology is focused on biological integration rather than mechanical systems. The concept of deliberately harming another sentient being is foreign to them." How foreign? They do not have words for murder or assault in their language. When they first translated the Krex surrender demands, they had to invent new vocabulary. The bridge was quiet for a moment as everyone absorbed this information. Humans had grown up with stories of war and violence. Every child learned about the conflicts that had shaped their species. The idea of a civilization that had never known such things was almost impossible to comprehend. Sir Lieutenant Choi called out, "We are receiving new transmissions from the system. The Krex are demanding surrender and threatening to begin executions in 60 hours. Admiral Kim made his decision. All ships reduced to stealth approach. I want us in the outer system without being detected. Prep the reconnaissance squadrons for immediate deployment. Begin loading the kinetic bombardment platforms. This is now a combat operation." Captain Park smiled with satisfaction. She had been hoping for a chance to test human military doctrine against a real opponent. The training exercises were useful, but there was nothing like actual combat to prove the effectiveness of their strategies. "Sir, what are our rules of engagement? The Krex have invaded a peaceful world and are threatening genocide. As of now, they are designated hostile combatants. We will offer them one chance to withdraw. If they refuse, we eliminate their capacity to harm civilians." The fleet began its approach to the Kepler 7 system. Human ships were designed for stealth operations and could mask their energy signatures when needed. The Krex would not detect them until it was too late. Dr. Lee continued analyzing the Volani transmissions and building a psychological profile of their species. Admiral, I am concerned about culture shock. When these people see human military capabilities, they may be traumatized. We should prepare for first contact protocols that account for their peaceful nature. Understood, Doctor. But right now our priority is stopping the Kreks before they start, killing civilians. The tactical display showed the Kepler-7 system in detail. SciFiPrime was a garden world with blue oceans and green continents. The Kreks fleet hung in orbit like a disease. 43 ships, including 3 heavy cruisers and a command carrier. On the surface, transport vessels were landing troops. At regular intervals, how many Kreks ground forces? Admiral Kim asked. Estimated 12,000 troops, sir. They have established 3 main staging areas and are systematically pacifying population centers. Captain Park studied the tactical situation, sir. With your permission, I would like to coordinate the orbital strikes. The Kreks' deployment pattern is predictable. We can eliminate their space assets within 30 minutes. What about their ground forces? The Marines are ready for deployment, sir, called out Colonel Jae-Hwan Moon from the Marine Command Station. My orbital drop teams can be planet-side 6 hours after you give the word. We have studied Kreks' tactics. They rely on intimidation and overwhelming force against weak opponents. They have never faced determined resistance. Admiral Kim activated the fleet communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Kim. We are about to engage a hostile force that is conducting genocide operations against a peaceful species. The enemy has superior numbers but inferior technology and training. We will demonstrate to the galaxy what happens when someone threatens innocent civilians while humanity is watching. All stations report ready status. The responses came back quickly. Every ship in the fleet confirmed battle readiness. The humans had been preparing for this kind of operation for decades. Earth's military doctrine was built around the idea of projecting force across interstellar distances to protect human interests and allied species. Sir Dr. Lee said, I am detecting a new transmission from the planet's surface. The Villani are trying to contact us directly. The main screen showed the face of a young Villani male. His features were delicate and alien, but his expression of desperate hope was unmistakably universal. This is Minho of the SciFiPrime. We have detected ships approaching our system. Please identify yourselves. Are you here to help us? Admiral Kim considered how to respond. First contact protocols suggested careful introduction of human capabilities to avoid cultural contamination. But these people were about to die if someone did not act quickly. This is Admiral Kim of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. We received your distress call and are responding. Can you provide tactical information about Kreks' positions? There was a long pause on the other end. Terran. Minho repeated slowly. You are from the world called Terra. The stories speak of Terra. Dr. Lee leaned forward with interest. Admiral, they know about Earth. Their legends include references to our world. What do the stories say about us? Admiral Kim asked. Another pause. When Minho spoke again, his voice was filled with equal parts hope and terror. They say Terra is a death world. They say the beings who live there are born to fight and kill. They say Terrans can survive anything and destroy anyone who threatens them. Captain Park laughed softly. Well, they are not wrong about that. Admiral Kim activated the communication system again. Minho of the SciFiPrime. The stories are partially correct. We are from Terra, which you call Earth. We are a species that learned to fight because our world taught us that survival requires strength. But we also learn to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The Kreks have threatened your people. We are here to make sure that stops. How many ships do you have? Enough. The tactical display updated as the fleet reached the outer edge of the Kepler-7 system. Long-range sensors began painting detailed pictures of Kreks' positions and capabilities, sir. Captain Park reported, enemy fleet deployment is standard Kreks pattern. They have concentrated their heavy ships in high orbit, while their lighter vessels provide close support for ground operations. They are not expecting resistance. Begin the approach. All ships maintain stealth until we reach optimal firing position. I want to be close enough to ensure complete destruction of their capability before they know we are here. The human fleet moved through space like ghosts. Centuries of warfare had taught them the value of surprise and overwhelming force. The Kreks had made the mistake of attacking innocent people. While humanity was watching, Admiral Kim opened a channel to the Kreks' command ship. Commander Jiho Nam guided his stealth reconnaissance craft through the asteroid field at the edge of the Kepler-7 system. The ship was barely larger than a fighter, but it carried sensor equipment that could map an entire star system without being detected. Behind him, 20 other recon ships spread out to gather intelligence on Krek's positions. Control. "This is Recon 1, he transmitted on the encrypted channel, beginning detailed scan of the primary target zone. The data flowed back to the fleet in real time. Every Krek's ship position, every ground installation, every energy signature that might indicate weapons or command centers. The humans had learned long ago that information was as important as firepower when planning military operations. General Su Young Kang studied the intelligence reports from her position aboard the troop transport Fury. Her ground forces were already suited up and ready for deployment. 2 full divisions of Marines plus the elite orbital drop specialists. 40,000 soldiers trained for combat in alien environments. The Kreks have established 3 main staging areas, she reported to Admiral Kim. Primary command post is in what appears to be the Volani capital city. Secondary bases are at the major spaceports. They are using standard occupation doctrine with garrison forces distributed among population centers. Colonel Jae-won Moon reviewed the tactical data with his drop team leaders. Enemy ground forces are concentrated in defensive positions around captured infrastructure. They expect resistance to come from the civilian population, not from orbit. Their anti-air defenses are positioned to stop small civilian aircraft, not military assault craft. Meanwhile, on SciFiPrime, Minho monitored the communications between the human fleet and the Krek's command ship. The translator was having difficulty with some of the human phrases, but the meaning was clear enough. "Suji," he called out, "the Terrans have given the Kreks 30 minutes to leave our system." The old Volani limped over to look at the displays. 30 minutes, she repeated. "There are over 40 Krek ships in orbit. How can anyone force them to leave in 30 minutes? The answer came soon enough. Admiral Kim's voice echoed across all communication channels in the system Krek's command vessel. "This is your final warning. Begin immediate withdrawal or face the consequences." The Krek's response was predictable. "Terran vessels, you are outnumbered and outgunned. Our fleet includes 3 heavy cruisers and 40 support ships. You cannot possibly match our firepower. Withdraw now or be destroyed." Minho watched. The sensor readings as something impossible began to happen. The space around the SciFiPrime suddenly filled with energy signatures as ship after ship dropped out of stealth mode. The display showed dozens of contacts, then hundreds. Massive vessels that dwarfed the largest Krek's ships appeared from nowhere. "By the ancient lights," Suji whispered. "How many ships do they have?" The tactical display updated continuously as more human vessels revealed themselves. 847 ships arranged in perfect battle formation. The smallest human destroyer was larger than a Krek's heavy cruiser. The dreadnoughts were mobile fortresses that bristled with weapons on the Krek's command ship War Commander. Vec stared at his sensor readings in disbelief. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Where did they come from?" His tactical officer checked the readings 3 times before responding. "Sir, the energy signatures indicate massive stealth capability. They must have been approaching for hours without our sensors detecting them." "What is their total firepower?" "Unknown, sir. Our databases have no records of these ship designs. Preliminary scans suggest weapons technology significantly more advanced. Then our own War Commander Vec had conquered 17 systems for the Krek's empire. He understood military tactics, and he recognized when he was facing superior force, but the Empire had never retreated from a single engagement. To withdraw now would be seen as cowardice. All ships maintain position. Prepare for combat operations, Admiral." Kim received the Krek's response and sighed. "All ships, this is Admiral Kim. The enemy has refused our offer to withdraw. Initiate Terran Protocol 7. Eliminate all hostile spacecraft. Minimize damage to planetary infrastructure. Ground forces prepare for immediate deployment." What happened next would be remembered in galactic history as the most one-sided space battle ever recorded. The human fleet opened fire with weapons that had never been seen before. Kinetic bombardment systems launched projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. Particle beams carved through Krek's armor like it was made of paper. Missile swarms found their targets with impossible accuracy. The first Krek's ship died within 12 seconds of the engagement beginning. The heavy cruiser Dark Conquest simply vanished in a ball of plasma as human kinetic rounds tore through its hull. 2 more ships followed within the next minute. War Commander Vec watched his fleet being systematically destroyed. All ships scatter and retreat, he ordered. Emergency jump to rally point 7, but the humans had anticipated this. Gravity well generators prevented any ship from entering hyperspace. The Krex fleet was trapped in normal space with enemies that could kill them faster than they could run. Sir, the tactical officer reported, we have lost 18 ships. Enemy. Casualties 0. The battle continued for exactly 47 minutes. When it ended, every Krex spacecraft in the system had been reduced to debris. The human fleet had not suffered a single casualty. On SciFiPrime, Minho watched the impossible happen. The species that had terrorized his people for days had been completely eliminated by beings he had only heard about in ancient stories. Minho, of SciFiPrime. Admiral Kim's voice came through the communicator. Krex space assets have been neutralized. We are beginning ground operations to eliminate the remaining occupation forces. Please keep your people in designated safe areas while we work. How long will it take? Minho asked. Estimated completion time is 6 hours. 6 hours to eliminate 12,000 enemy soldiers. Minho tried to understand how such a thing was possible. The answer came in the form of General Kang's ground assault. Human dropships descended through the atmosphere like meteors. They were designed to survive crash landings and operate in hostile environments. The Krex anti-air defenses managed to hit several of them, but the human craft kept coming. Colonel Moon's orbital drop specialists went first. They jumped from low orbit wearing powered armor that let them survive impacts that would kill most species. They landed in the middle of Krex positions and began systematic elimination of enemy command posts. Team 7 reporting successful insertion. Colonel Moon transmitted, Krex command post is secured. No friendly casualties. The ground assault was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human soldiers operated in conditions that would be lethal to most species. They fought in toxic environments. They continued operations while wounded. They coordinated attacks across multiple battlefields simultaneously. The Krex had expected to face desperate civilians with improvised weapons. Instead, they found themselves fighting creatures that seemed immune to fear and capable of surviving injuries that should have been fatal. Sergeant Minji Shin led her squad through the ruined streets of the Volani capital. They had been tasked with clearing Krex positions near civilian shelters. The enemy had fortified several buildings and was using Volani captives as shields. Command, this is Bravo 7, she reported. Enemy forces are using civilians as human shields. Request permission to use precision tactics. Approved, Sergeant. Minimize civilian casualties. The humans demonstrated why they were considered apex predators. They used tactics that required split-second timing and perfect coordination. Sniper teams eliminated Krex guards, while assault teams breached buildings from multiple directions simultaneously. The Volani civilians watched in amazement as human soldiers risked their own lives to protect people they had never met. Within 4 hours, the major Krex positions had been eliminated. The remaining enemy forces were trapped in isolated pockets with no hope of escape or reinforcement. Dr. Lee worked with Volani survivors to coordinate medical aid and evacuation procedures. Your people are safe now, he told Minho. The Krex threat has been eliminated. How is this possible? Minho asked. Your soldiers fight like they have no fear of death. We do fear death, Dr. Lee explained, but we fear the death of innocents more than our own death. On our world, we learned that sometimes you must fight to protect what matters. Bowman Ryu was a young Volani who had hidden in the ruins during the occupation. He emerged to find human soldiers distributing food and medical supplies to survivors. Are you really from a death world? He asked one of the Marines. The human removed her helmet, revealing the face of a young woman who looked barely older than Bowman himself. Earth taught us to be strong because weak things die quickly there, she said, but it also taught us to protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is what makes us human. As the last Krex positions fell, War Commander Vec found himself surrounded by human soldiers in what had been his command bunker. I demand to be treated according to the Galactic Conventions for Prisoners of War. He said. Captain Harim Song stepped forward. She was the intelligence officer assigned to handle prisoner interrogation. You will be treated fairly, she said. But first you will answer questions about Krex operations in other systems. We have evidence of genocide and slave trading. Your cooperation will determine how you are prosecuted. War Commander Vec stared at the human in disbelief. Sergeant Minji Shin crouched in the ruins of what had been a Volani cultural center and watched her team prepare the demolition charges. The Krex had built an underground fortress beneath the building and filled it with automated defense systems that were still killing civilians who wandered too close. "Bravo, team. This is Sergeant Shin," she reported. "Krex bunker is hardened against conventional assault. Recommend seismic charges to collapse the entire structure." The response came back immediately, approved Sergeant. "Civilian evacuation is complete. You are cleared for full demolition." Minji had been fighting in hostile environments for 8 years. She had served on worlds where the atmosphere was toxic and the gravity was crushing. She had fought in underwater cities and in the vacuum of space. But this mission was different because the people she was protecting had never seen warfare before. Private Yonho Kim emerged from the access tunnel carrying sensor readings. "Sergeant, the Krex automated systems are still active. Motion detectors and auto turrets covering all approaches. Anyone who gets within 50 meters gets shot. How many civilians are trapped inside? Unknown. But thermal scans show at least 30 life signs." Minji considered the tactical situation. The Krex had designed the bunker to be impregnable, but they had not planned for human capabilities. The automated defenses were programmed to stop standard galactic military equipment, not soldiers from a Deathworld. Park and Chen take the east approach. Kim and Rodriguez go west. I will enter through the main access. Remember, these defenses were designed to stop normal species, not us. The team moved into position. Minji activated her powered armor and checked her weapons. The armor was designed to operate in conditions that would kill an unprotected human instantly. It could function underwater at crushing depths. It could survive in the vacuum of space. It could protect against radiation levels that would be lethal to most galactic species. The first motion detector activated when she was still 40 meters from the entrance. Automated turrets swiveled toward her position and opened fire with plasma bolts that could melt through standard armor. But human armor was not standard. The bolts splashed harmlessly against her shields while she advanced steadily toward the bunker entrance. "Motion detectors neutralized," she reported, beginning entry sequence. The entrance was sealed with a blast door designed to stop heavy weapons. Minji attached shaped charges to the weak points and stepped back. The explosion echoed through the underground complex as the door disintegrated. Inside, she found a maze of corridors lined with defensive positions. The Krex had built this place to withstand siege warfare. But they had never faced someone who could operate in total darkness and toxic atmosphere while carrying enough firepower to level a building. Thermal imaging shows civilian life signs. Concentrated in the central chamber, Private Kim reported, "Multiple automated defense systems between our position and theirs." Minji moved through the complex like a ghost. Her armor masked her heat signature and dampened sound. The motion detectors could not track her movement patterns, which had been developed for combat against human opponents. Every few minutes, she encountered defensive turrets that opened fire, automatically. Each time her armor absorbed the damage while she systematically destroyed the weapons, central chamber secured. She finally reported, "Beginning civilian evacuation." Inside the chamber, she found 32 Volani cowering in a corner. They had been trapped for 3 days without food or water, while automated systems prevented any rescue attempt. One of them was Bowman Ryu, who had become an unofficial liaison between the Volani survivors and the human forces. Sergeant Shin, he said with relief, "We thought no one could reach us." "Human soldiers can reach anywhere," she replied simply. "Are any of you injured?" The Volani stared at her in amazement. She had walked through defenses that could have stopped an army, and she spoke as if it was routine. "How did you get past the defense systems? Human armor is designed for environments much more dangerous than this. Our homeworld taught us to survive. Things that would kill most species instantly." She helped evacuate the civilians through the tunnels her team had cleared. Outside medical teams were waiting with supplies and equipment to treat injuries and malnutrition. Dr. Lee was studying the Krex defensive systems with growing amazement. "Admiral, these bunkers were designed to withstand orbital bombardment. The Krex expected to hold out for months if necessary." "How long did it take Sergeant Shin to clear it?" 47 minutes, sir." Admiral Kim nodded with satisfaction. Human ground forces had been designed for exactly this kind of operation. When diplomacy failed and overwhelming firepower was not appropriate, you sent in soldiers who could accomplish impossible missions through superior training and equipment. On the surface, General Kong was coordinating the final cleanup operations. Scattered Krex positions were still holding out in remote locations, but they posed no real threat to civilian populations. Status report, Colonel Moon. All major enemy positions eliminated, sir. We have captured 43 Krex soldiers for interrogation. Enemy casualties are approximately 11,800. Human casualties are 6 wounded, none fatal. The numbers were staggering. An entire Krex army had been eliminated with minimal human losses. But the real impact was psychological. Captain Harim Song was interrogating captured Krex officers and learning about the broader implications of the battle. Your empire conquered 17 systems, she said to War Commander Vec. How many ships? Did you lose in all those campaigns combined? Perhaps 20 vessels over 50 years of expansion. We destroyed your entire fleet in less than an hour. What do you think that will do to Krex morale when word spreads? War Commander Vec was beginning to understand the strategic disaster he had witnessed. Other species will hear of this. They will know we can be defeated. Exactly. Your empire is built on fear and the belief that resistance is hopeless. What happens when your subjects realize there are beings in the galaxy who can stop you? The interrogations revealed the scope of Krex operations across 4 sectors: slave colonies, resource extraction, biological experiments. The evidence was overwhelming and damning. Meanwhile, Bowman worked with human engineers to begin rebuilding the damaged infrastructure on SciFiPrime. Your technology is incredible, he said to one of the technicians. These medical scanners can detect injuries we did not even know we had. Our people learned to build medical equipment because our world injures us regularly. The technician explained, if you cannot heal quickly on Earth, you do not survive to reproduce. Bowman was fascinated by human physiology. Is it true that your gravity is 3 times stronger than ours? Actually, it is 2.7 times stronger. But yes, human children learn to walk in conditions that would crush most adult Velani. And your atmosphere contains poison. Oxygen is highly reactive. It damages biological tissue over time. But our bodies evolved to use it efficiently while repairing. The cellular damage it causes. How do you survive such conditions? We do not just survive them, we thrive in them. Earth made us strong because weak things die there. But it also made us protective because strength means nothing if you do not use it to help others. Dr. Lee was documenting these cultural exchanges for the official First Contact. Report Admiral, the Velani are adapting well to human presence. Their initial fear has given way to curiosity about our capabilities and culture. Any signs of trauma from the Krex occupation? Some, but they are resilient. Their social structure emphasizes community support and healing. They will recover, given time and security. Speaking of security, I want to establish a permanent garrison here. The Krex Empire will eventually send scouts to investigate what happened to their fleet. General Kang reviewed the strategic requirements. I recommend a full battle group, sir. 1 dreadnought, 6 destroyers, 2 marine battalions. Enough force to deter future Krex aggression while providing security for reconstruction efforts. The decision to establish a permanent human presence in the Kepler-7 system would have far-reaching consequences. For the first time, humanity was committing to defend an alien species against external threats. Minho found himself appointed as the primary liaison between the surviving Velani government and the human military command. Your people saved us, he said to Admiral Kim during their first formal meeting. How can we ever repay such a debt? You do not owe us anything. Admiral Kim replied, protecting peaceful species from aggressive predators is what civilized beings do. We ask only that you consider an alliance between our peoples. What would such an alliance require? Mutual defense agreements, technology sharing, cultural exchange. We have much to learn from each other. Minho considered this carefully. Our people have never been part of a military alliance. We do not understand concepts like strategy and tactics. You do not need to understand warfare to be valuable allies. Your biological technology could help us develop better medical treatments. Your agricultural methods could help us feed growing populations. Alliance is about more than fighting. The negotiations continued for days as both species worked to establish frameworks for cooperation. But the real impact of the human intervention was already spreading across the galaxy on distant worlds where Krek's slave colonies operated. The news of their defeat at the SciFiPrime sparked the first uprisings in 50 years. Ambassador Unha Yang arrived on the SciFiPrime 6 days after the battle aboard the diplomatic vessel Terra Nova. She was a specialist in first contact protocols, and her job was to establish formal relations between humanity and the Villani. But nothing in her training had prepared her for the complexity of the situation she found. The Villani survivors were grateful for their rescue but deeply troubled by what they had witnessed. A species they had only known from ancient legends had appeared from nowhere and casually destroyed forces that had seemed invincible. Elder Chanwu Jian was one of the few remaining Villani historians, and he had begun documenting everything that had happened during the human intervention. Ambassador Yang, he said during their first meeting, "My people are struggling to understand what we have seen. Your soldiers fought as if death held no fear for them. They survived injuries that should have been fatal. They operated in conditions that would kill most galactic species." Ambassador Yang had dealt with this kind of culture shock before. Elder John: "Our species evolved differently than yours. On Earth, survival required constant adaptation to hostile conditions. We learned to be resilient because our world did not permit weakness, but you also showed restraint. Your forces could have destroyed our entire world if they had chosen to. Why did you hold back? Because strength without wisdom is mere brutality. We have the power to destroy, but we choose to protect. That choice is what makes us civilized." The formal alliance negotiations began in the rebuilt council chambers of the SciFiPrime. Admiral Kim represented human military interests, while Ambassador Yang handled diplomatic concerns. The Villani delegation was led by Minho, who had been elected as their new chief administrator. "The proposed mutual defense treaty is straightforward," Ambassador Yang explained. "If either of our species faces external aggression, the other will provide military assistance. But there are conditions that protect Villani autonomy." Minho studied the treaty documents carefully. Article 7 states that human forces may be stationed on Villani worlds for security purposes. "What does this mean in practice, Admiral?" Kim answered, "We want to establish a battle group in this system as a deterrent against future Krek's aggression. The force would be under human command but would operate in coordination with Villani authorities. And if we disagree with human military decisions, then we discuss the situation and find compromises. We are not here to conquer you. We are here to protect you." But protection came with complications. Captain Harim Song was analyzing intelligence gathered from captured Krek's officers, and the picture she was building was disturbing. "Admiral, we have confirmed Krek's operations in 4 sectors. 17 enslaved species, hundreds of slave worlds, resource extraction operations that have stripped entire star systems. What is the total population under Krek's control?" "Estimated 47 billion sentient beings, sir." The numbers were staggering. The Krek's empire was larger than anyone had realized, and their defeat at the SciFiPrime was only the beginning of a much larger conflict. Dr. Lee was working with Villani scientists to understand their biological technology. "Ambassador, this is remarkable," he said excitedly. "The Villani can grow buildings that repair themselves. They have medical treatments that regenerate tissue damage. They have agricultural systems that can feed massive populations without depleting soil nutrients. And what can we offer them in return? Protection, obviously, but also industrial technology, faster than light communication, advanced materials science. We complement each other perfectly, but not all interactions were going smoothly. Bauman had become fascinated with human soldiers and spent hours asking questions about Earth and human culture. "Sergeant Shin," he said one day, "is it true that human children fight each other for practice?" Minji laughed. "We call it sports. Children compete in games that teach them strategy and teamwork. Some of the games simulate combat, but they are not real fighting. But you also have real wars between human nations. Yes, our species has not always been united. We fought many wars before we learned to work together. How did you stop fighting each other? We realized that our real enemies were the hostile conditions on our world: starvation, disease, natural disasters. When we focused on fighting those threats instead of each other, we became stronger." These conversations were being recorded by Elder Jian for his historical archive. "What troubles me," he confided to Ambassador Yang, "is that my people are beginning to see violence as normal. Our children ask questions about weapons and military tactics. These are concepts that did not exist in our culture before the humans arrived. Ambassador Yang understood his concern. Elder John, exposure to human military capabilities will change your culture. There is no way to avoid that. But you can choose how to integrate these new concepts. Focus on the protective aspects rather than the destructive ones. Meanwhile, reports were arriving from across the galaxy. As news of the Krek's defeat spread, the Zephyrian Republic had declared independence from Krek's control and was fighting a guerrilla war against occupation forces. The mining colonies in the Helix Nebula had gone silent, and intelligence suggested widespread uprisings. 3 Krek's fleets had been dispatched to suppress rebellions, but they were facing coordinated resistance for the first time in decades. Admiral Kim received new orders from Earth Command. Admiral, you are authorized to expand operations in the region. Priority targets are Krek's slave facilities and military installations. Rules of engagement remain unchanged. Understood, Command. We will begin liberation operations immediately. But liberation was proving to be more complicated than conquest, General. Kang briefed the staff on the challenges they were facing. Sir, we have identified 47 Krek slave colonies within our operational area. Some have been under occupation for over 30 years. The enslaved populations may not remember their original cultures. What do you recommend, General? Phased liberation operations. We eliminate Krek's military forces, then provide humanitarian aid while helping each species rebuild their societies. It will take years, not months. The scope of the commitment was enormous, Dr. Lee was analyzing the psychological profiles of various enslaved species. Admiral, many of these populations have been conditioned to accept Krek's authority. They may resist liberation attempts because they fear retaliation. How do we overcome that? Demonstration of overwhelming force. When they see that we can defeat the Kreks decisively, they will understand that resistance is possible. The first liberation operation was launched against the slave colonies in the Arcturus system. 3 human destroyers eliminated the Krek's garrison within 2 hours, while marine units secured the surface installations. The response from the enslaved population was everything Dr. Lee had predicted. Please do not anger the Kreks, pleaded Torvin, the leader of the Altarian workers. They will punish us when they return, Colonel Moon tried to explain. The Kreks are not returning. We have destroyed their ships and captured their soldiers. You are free. Free. Torvin repeated the word as if he had never heard it before. What does that mean? It meant months of careful rehabilitation, teaching people who had been slaves for decades how to make decisions for themselves, providing food and medical care, helping them remember cultures that had been suppressed for generations. But each successful liberation made the next one easier. Word spread through the underground networks that connected enslaved populations across Krek space. The mysterious Terrans could defeat any Krek's force. They protected the innocent and punished the guilty. They kept their promises and honored their commitments on SciFiPrime. The reconstruction was progressing rapidly with human assistance. Minho found himself serving as more than just a liaison. He was becoming the face of Volani cooperation with humanity. Ambassador Yang, he said during one of their regular meetings, my people want to contribute more to this alliance. We feel like we are only receiving help without giving anything in return. What do you have in mind? Our biological technology could be useful for medical applications. Our agricultural methods could help feed populations on liberated worlds. We want to be partners, not just protected beneficiaries. Ambassador Yang smiled. Minho, that is exactly what we hoped you would say. The Volani began deploying their capabilities across the region. Medical teams that could regrow lost limbs, agricultural specialists who could restore damaged ecosystems, engineers who could design living buildings that adapted to local conditions. The alliance was becoming something more than mutual defense. It was becoming a model for cooperation between radically different species. But success brought new challenges. Intelligence reports indicated that the Krek's Empire was mobilizing its entire military for a counter-offensive, Admiral Captain Song reported. We are detecting massive fleet movements from the Krek's core worlds. Estimated strength is over 2,000 ships, including their newest dreadnoughts. How long before they reach our operational area? 6 months, sir. Maybe less if they use the deep space routes. Admiral Kim activated the emergency communication system. Earth Command. This is Admiral Kim. Request immediate reinforcement. We are about to face the entire Krex military. The response came back within hours. Admiral Kim, this is Fleet Command. The 3rd, 5th, and 9th Expeditionary Fleets are being deployed to your sector. Estimated arrival time, 4 months. Hold your position and continue liberation operations.